The Boys has changed the game when it comes to superhero media franchise. What started off as an adaptation of one of the greatest parody comics about soups has since become a legit must-watch because apparently Eric Kripke is an oracle. Every season of The Boys has been spot on with its political commentary, and this season will be no different in that sense. What does put it apart from the rest is the fact that it's the last one. So, of course, the show's gonna go out with a bang. Amazon just dropped the final trailer for season 5, and it's got everything you wanted and then some. So, without further ado, here are 20 things you've missed in The Boys' final season trailer. Finally, a god. The trailer begins with Homelander climbing some steps and making an appearance at what looks like a conservative political action committee. The voiceover states that Homelander is looking to become the definition of absolute power, and this trailer shows us what his path to obtaining that power will be: getting his hands on the first iteration of Compound V. This is the same serum that Soldier Boy and Thomas Godolkin took to make themselves functionally immortal, and immortality is something Homelander has been obsessed with ever since his nether hairs started shedding. He's been keeping them safe in a jar, but after the finale of Gen V, where he discovered that Godolkin was still alive and the reason behind that, he now knows how to extend his natural lifespan. That will be a mainstay of his narrative this season, where he walks the talk he gave Ryan in season 2, when he said that they're not humans or heroes, they're gods. To make that not so subtle point clear to us, we see Homelander at that CPAC addressing his followers with the imagery of Jesus Christ being closely attached to him. As he spreads his arms in the crucifixion pose, we see a crucified Christ behind him, signaling his true intent. Butcher changes his mind. One of the biggest changes from season 4 to season 5 will be the change in Butcher's heart, because at the end of season 4, he took the soup-killing virus from the boys and decided to go off on his own. But now, we see him working with them all throughout the trailer, so that begs the question, what made him change his mind? Well, in the teaser trailer that came out a couple of months ago, we saw Butcher addressing most of the members of the boys with a speech about having a go at the soups one last time. Maybe he realized he no longer has the resources to tackle all soups as a one-man army, and that's why he's returned. He's even got a new base set up for them, and for most of the trailer, he's working alongside his once former comrades. But knowing him, he's got something else cooking as well, and that becomes clear from a shot that comes later in the trailer where we see him using his cancer tentacles on Huey during a disagreement. Butcher also says that they can't stop until the job is finished. And we know what he means by that. The look on his face when he realized he could genocide soups out of existence made his intentions quite clear to us. Terror versus Dognot. One of the most heartwarming returns in this trailer has to be Terror, Butcher's pitbull, who's been trained to fornicate with things on command. The last time we saw Terror was in season 2, and eagle-eyed viewers will note that he's looking a little different. That's because this Terror is being played by a new dog, for the original Terror passed away last year. Rest in peace to him. But Terror's return is more than just a feel-good moment, because it's no coincidence that Gen V Season 2 introduced Vaught's most accomplished tracker and quote dog lover, Dognot. In the last teaser, there was a scene where Dognot spat something out of his bloody mouth, and considering how effectively he tracked down Marie Moreau, it only makes sense that Homelander will enlist his services to track down the boys as well. In fact, we think that's why Terror has returned for the final season, because we're about to get him versus Dognot. And yeah, it's going to be a competition to see who F's who first. The Deep's latest side quest. We're not even gonna touch the Deep's new Manosphere podcast titled Manhandled, which he seems to co-host with the new Black Noir. It's a brilliant yet vomit-inducing take on one of the worst aspects of content creation from the modern age. Instead, we're gonna focus on that scene where the Deep rolls up on a beach riding a hammerhead shark. It ties into another scene from the teaser where we saw Homelander covered in ink from what looks like a deep-sea fish. Deep goes on a new side quest every season. So in our opinion, him and his best bro broing it out in the middle of the ocean can be for one of two reasons. The first is that Deep somehow gets involved in finding V1. Maybe Vought dropped a vial of it in the ocean before switching to V2. and Homelander gets desperate enough to tolerate fishes for a day. The second, and more likely reason, is they're trying to cover up the Flight 37 incident, because it's the one thing that even Homelander's hardcore loyalists would end up questioning. He killed a lot of good American citizens that day, so if their remains were recovered, it would immediately disprove his narrative of keeping America first. Moreover, the recording that Maeve wanted to use as a bargaining chip has been a Chekhov's gun for a while now, and we'd love a proper payoff for it. Dr. Samir's return. One of the more surprising returns was that of Dr. Samir Shah. You'd think after making Butcher an airborne virus that kills all soups, he'd have served his purpose and Butcher would have decommissioned him. But no, he's still alive. And he's the one who points out that if Homie gets his hands on V1, it's game over. That makes sense because Samir knows soup biology inside out. His virus was programmed to kill soups with V2 in their veins, and that's why we hear Butcher say they need to finish the job before it's too late. What doesn't make sense is why he's still working with Butcher, because Butcher killed the love of his life. There has to be some sort of retribution for Victoria Newman's death, right? And that also brings us to Stan Edgar. Mr. Edgar made a brief appearance in Gen V Season 2, where he revealed he has a doomsday bunker that's better than Mark Zuckerberg's. In this trailer, he's approached by the boys sans Butcher because they need to know where V1 is stored. It looks like Stan gives them at least a couple of locations because Vought isn't dumb enough to store it all in one place. But just like Samir, Stan would also want some retribution for Vicky's death. So, is that why we see Zoe in the last trailer burying her face worms? Questions are all we have right now, but we think that these men aren't the type to forget something like that, especially Stan Edgar. Sister Sage, the Lurker. Although her appearances in the trailer were brief, it's clear that Sister Sage has something brewing on that big brain of hers. In Gen V, she realized she made a big mistake by helping Thomas Godolkin get back to full strength because he immediately went full fascist. Sage was visibly horrified by Godolkin not listening to her after he'd done so for most of the season, and she's smart enough to recognize the same pattern with Homeland. So, when we noticed that she was overseeing someone getting injected with Compound V, two possibilities came to our minds. Either she's given into her fate and accepted that she's unleashed an uncontrollable monster and is watching Homie get injected with V1, or she's creating an answer to him, which is the route we want her to take. Another Sage appearance in the trailer shows her sitting in what looks like a Vought office, and she is stressed. Our best guess is that she knows how badly the situation's gotten away from her and is secretly working on either regaining control or taking down the monster she's created. A-Train's Quicksilver moment. We had to mention A-Train's Quicksilver moment because it's about damn time he got one. A-Train has been one of the most compelling characters throughout this franchise because, unlike the Deep, his redemption arc was real. He went from a V-junkie and ethnicity exploiter to someone who genuinely wants to do good, and his friendship with Annie shows how far he's really come. They're the only members of the boys that are free at the end of Gen V, apart from Butcher, of course. And our best guess is the scene where we see A-Train running while everything else slows down is during his rescue of the other human members of the boys from a Vought-controlled concentration camp. This camp, financed by Ted Knight's private prison business, is where we see Huey sporting those drippy yet awful American flag branded t-shirts in the trailer. And just like Quicksilver, A-Train is sporting his civilian clothes and his signature goggles to protect his eyes from unexpected debris. How Starlight will save the boys. As for how the boys will get back together, well, putting together the scenes from the last teaser and this trailer pretty much gives us the answer. It looks like a combination of A-Train, Marie Moreau, and Starlight will get the job done. We mention Marie because there's a scene in the trailer that shows Huey looking at a body that's exploded from the inside out. That's a power she has. But to be fair, so does Cindy. So it could also be a Vought prisoner escape management tactic. But there's no doubt in our minds that Starlight will save her boyfriend because in the teaser, we got a shot of her using her electricity manipulation powers to light up a Vought concentration camp. And we get that same shot in this trailer. Her Christ pose is meant to juxtapose Homelander's, who's clearly positioned as the Antichrist of this series. And this also explains the moment where she and Huey are reunited from the teaser, because it looks like that happens after Annie and A-Train work their magic. Why does Starlight need to run? This also begs the question though, why is Annie telling Jordan and Marie to run? We know that Jordan and Marie know ball, and Marie especially can hang with the best of the best as the only other survivor of Project Odessa. So, is Annie just concerned for them, or did something go terribly wrong? Depending on where in the final season this scene occurs, it could be one of two things. Either Homelander gets his hands on V1 and Annie realizes that no one is safe anymore, or Butcher goes rogue and she realizes that no one is safe anymore. Either way, if the soup virus is released, which we expect it to, Marie is the only one who can counteract its effects because that's exactly what her powers were made for. And, speaking of the soup virus, Frenchie the King. The main reason Frenchie is such an important character is the fact that he's the most brilliant chemist in the entire series, minus the formal education. When we meet Dr. Samir in Season 4, he taunted him with the fact that he was used to working in clean, sterilized, and fully stocked labs. Frenchie was an improviser who went dumpster diving to create lethal bombs. When Samir's traditional methodology meets Frenchie's laissez-faire approach, the result is a disaster for soups, and that's exactly what this trailer foreshadows. There's a moment where a man in a hazmat suit drops a black liquid out of a test tube. If you look closely, it's clear that that's Tomer Capone, and it looks like Frenchie finally figured out how to make the soup virus tick all the boxes. Based on his surroundings, he is probably releasing the virus in the heart of Vought Tower. And isn't that going to be a game changer for the boys? Butcher versus Cindy. As for Butcher, well, it's nice to see him being diabolical and killing people with his new tentacles. But we also see him holding someone up with those tentacles. And that someone is Cindy. Cindy escaped Sage Grove during the Lamplighter incident, and while her aligning with Homelander hasn't been explained, it makes sense. They were both imprisoned and lied to at a critical stage in their lives, and perhaps Homie used that kinship to bring her into the fold. As for where he's fighting Cindy and why, it's definitely in a Vought-controlled facility, but which one? Our guess is that it's the camps, because those camps have been decked out in Americana like the setting of this fight. Plus, this is a fight we can't wait to see, because both Cindy and Butcher are bat crap crazy. Their powers might not be compatible because Cindy can manipulate matter and is likely behind that blown up body we mentioned earlier. But if there's anyone who can find a workaround, it's Billy Butcher, and we trust him to give her the Victoria Newman treatment as well. Ryan versus Vought. The wild card of Season 5 is going to be our boy Ryan, because Season 4 made it seem like he had fully embraced the heel life. He was having fun spending time with his dad and bullying Vought employees, and he seemed genuinely hurt by Butcher's deception when he brought him to play Connect 4. But if we're right about the kid, Ryan seems to have rejected his dad's philosophy, especially after he openly comes out as a tyrannical, autocratic figure. Season 4 also depicted the struggle in Ryan's soul, because on one hand, he loved his dad, but on the other, he loved his mom too. When push came to shove during that propaganda Muppets parody show, he chose to follow Becca's example. He might have killed Grace Mallory, but Ryan was genuinely shocked by it, and we think he decided to go on the run after seeing his father's true face. That's why we see multiple shots depicting Vought guards chasing someone that can seemingly fly. The fact that the trailer shows Ryan when Homelander says backstabbers supports this argument. And if that's true, then those infamous shots of Homie beating someone to a pulp become less enigmatic. Whether Ryan reunites with Butcher remains to be seen, but him going against his dad does explain the next part of this trailer. Soldier Boy versus Butcher. We'd be lying if we said the incest exchange between Soldier Boy and Homelander wasn't hilarious, because it called back to both Game of Thrones and the former's personal hero Bill Cosby in the worst possible ways. But as for how Homie got his dad to team up with him, well, it's simple. He must have used Ryan's betrayal as well as Butcher's to appeal to Soldier Boy's machismo and penchant for loyalty. Say what you will about the guy's outdated ideals, one thing he does understand is loyalty. Just ask Payback and Crimson Countess. But Soldier Boy versus Butcher has another reason for happening, and that's Soldier Boy's ability to wipe out Compound V with his nuke blast. Now that Butcher is a soup, he's become a mortal threat to Homelander, and the best way to neutralize him is to take away his powers, because they're also keeping him alive. The trailer hints at this when we see Soldier Boy loading his blast up, and Butcher and Frenchie on the other side. But there's another reason Homelander took his dad off ice, and we'll address that in just a moment. The new Goebbels. We have to give a quick shout out to the set designers of The Boys Season 5 because they really nailed the Nazi Germany atmosphere of this season. And what it highlighted is the "follow us to the camps" sign. It's funny because it features cartoon versions of Homelander and Firecracker, putting a wholesome spin on what's clearly a concentration camp. And it's dark because it's essentially a recreation of what Joseph Goebbels did as a Nazi Germany's propaganda minister. He framed the camps as re-education institutions initially, because if word got out that Hitler was killing the Jews from the very beginning, his own people would have abandoned him. And we fully expect the boys to toe that line as well, because Homelander knows being called a Nazi is bad for his brand now. The Stormfront situation taught him that, so this nod to a classic Goebbels technique is as brilliant as it is terrifying. Fort Harmony Massacre. As one of the first people to receive V1, Soldier Boy might know where Homie can get some, and that assumption might just be proven correct, because they arrive at Fort Harmony Medical Institution, which is presumably the place where Soldier Boy was drafted for World War II and injected with V1. It's a homecoming that Soldier doesn't want, but will have to live through for the sake of his child. And whatever happens here will set the true tone for the rest of the season. Based on some of the shots from the teaser and the trailer, it looks like the boys realize Fort Harmony is one of the places where V1 might potentially be. And depending on which of them told the actual truth, they'll either arrive in the aftermath of a massacre or they'll be too late. Either way, we do believe that Homie will get his hands on V1, because in the teaser, there's a moment where he shoots his lasers into the sky. That could either be rage or his body adjusting to the new V formula in his veins. Butcher's crowbar. This is a seemingly small detail, but there's a brief scene in the trailer where we see Butcher holding a crowbar. You might be thinking, well, what's so special about a crowbar? Spoiler alert, but a crowbar is what he uses to win his vendetta against Homelander in the comics. So him carrying it around in the trailer is a sign that it's going to happen in some manner in the show as well. And if Eric Kripke decides to go full authenticity, then the scene will disturb you, but also make you unable to look away. White House Press Secretary Ashley. A lot of people might be wondering how Ashley fits into the whole narrative of Season 5. Well, the answer's actually quite simple. She's going to be Homelander's press secretary, which was revealed by the teasers. You'll notice that Ashley's signature ginger look is making a return as well. But the thing is, we don't think she's wearing a wig anymore. In Season 4, we saw her take Compound V to survive the purge at Vought Tower, and her head was making movements that heads shouldn't make. So we think that Ashley's hair will belong to her, but it will be more of a Medusa situation where controlling her hair will be her new superpower. But now that she's a supe, she's officially off Homelander's kill list, which is why she gets the press secretary job. And she's going to be excellent at it, though her loyalties remain questionable. Oh Father. One of the latest additions to the cast, Oh Father, is a minor character in the comics, but in the show he seems to be replacing Ezekiel. He has the power to project sonic waves like supersonic, but his ethos is aligned with Vought's true brand of debauchery and abusive power. Oh Father was actually in jail at one point because he's a child molester. And the fact that we see Ashley licking his face in the trailer doesn't surprise us, because she has questionable taste in men as well. But Oh Father's inclusion will go beyond the song and dance we see him performing, because if we're right about her, he might be Ashley's first victim in an insider coup against the new God King. Jared and Misha! The supernatural reunion is real, folks. Jared Padalecki and Misha Collins have made their first boys appearance in the promos for the final season. And while their roles remain undisclosed, we can figure out who they are by using context clues. Many fans believe that Jared is playing Mr. Marathon, A-Train's predecessor, which would make a lot of sense. He's wearing a tracksuit, there's a scene from the teaser where a Robin-esque death occurs around him, and he seems to know Soldier Boy better than Homelander. Some fans think that he's Jack from Jupiter, the only original 7 member not in the show, but if Jared's Marathon, then Misha could be Jack. It would be quite a treat to see him play a character that's supposed to be an alien, because it's clear that they're both from the old guard. Homelander bringing heroes out of retirement will solidify his old is new approach to diplomacy, and them being first generation Vought soups means that they might know where to find V1 as well. Perhaps that's why Soldier Boy and Homie are intimidating them whenever we see them in the trailers. But honestly, we're just happy to see Dean, Sam, and Cass back together. That Oval Office scene. The final scene from the trailer before the title card shows Homelander sitting in the Oval Office with a maniacal grin on his face. And when he smiles like that, you know things are either going swimmingly for him or they've gone to hell. Either possibility isn't good, because this shot is taken directly from the comics. And in the comics, it was the moment Homelander's takeover of the world was completed. There was a skull with a hole and a lot more blood involved there, but Anthony Starr uses a smile to make that scene even more terrifying somehow. And we don't want to speculate why he's smiling anymore. We just want to watch the final season to confirm whether it's in anticipation of his final battle with Butcher or not. And yes, the crowbar is for this scene, so keep that in mind when you watch it. But as for the trailer, that's all we've got for you guys. So let us know if you caught these details in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for more boys content, because that's what we're bringing all spring. And we'll see you soon with yet another video. Until then, stay safe, because God is Homelander and Earth's about to become hell.